We all know Arizona as a land of breathtaking sunsets, towering saguaros, and ancient Pueblo ruins. But what if I told you that scattered across this desert state are events so impossible, so thoroughly documented yet unexplained, that even seasoned investigators refuse to discuss them publicly? Doesn't make sense, does it? Arizona should be predictable, its mysteries limited to the distant past. Yet evidence exists across dozens of locations where the laws of nature seem to bend, where people vanish in ways that defy logic, and where phenomena occur that challenge everything we think we understand about reality. Today we're uncovering 6 of the most unbelievable stories from Arizona, mysteries that remain unsolved, and perhaps unsolvable. Story 1. The Superstition Mountains, Vanishing Hikers. The Superstition Mountains east of Phoenix have claimed more lives than any other mountain range in Arizona. But some disappearances that go beyond tragic accidents into territory that defies explanation. In March 2011, an experienced desert hiker named Jesse Kappen ventured into the Superstition searching for the legendary Lost Dutchman's gold mine. Kappen was no amateur. He had studied the mountains for years, carried proper equipment, and left detailed notes about his intended route with friends. When he failed to return after a week, search teams mobilized. They found his vehicle at the Peralta trailhead, locked and undisturbed. Inside was a journal containing his plans, sketches of rock formations, and a final entry dated the day he disappeared. The entry described finding an unusual rock formation that matched descriptions from old prospector accounts, a doorway carved into red stone that shouldn't have existed on modern surveys. Search teams scoured the area for weeks. Dogs picked up Kappen's scent along a trail leading toward Weaver's Needle, a prominent rock spire deep in the range. But at a certain point, roughly 3 miles from the trailhead, the scent simply vanished. Not faded, not diluted by weather, but gone, as if Kappen had been lifted off the ground. Months passed. Then in November 2012, nearly 2 years after his disappearance, Kappen's body was found in a remote canyon by a pair of hikers who had strayed off marked trails. Here's where it gets impossible. The location where his body was discovered was more than 12 miles from where his scent had vanished, in terrain so treacherous that experienced climbers describe it as nearly impassable on foot. Forensic analysis suggested he had died from a fall, but the state of his remains didn't match the timeline. His clothing showed minimal weathering despite being exposed to Arizona's harsh sun and seasonal rains for nearly 2 years. His boots were barely scuffed, suggesting limited walking, yet he'd somehow traversed 12 miles of brutal desert terrain. Even stranger, items from his backpack were found scattered across an area spanning several square miles, not in a pattern consistent with scavenging animals or flash flooding, but arranged almost deliberately. His water bottle propped against a rock 3 miles from his body. His GPS unit found face up on a flat stone another 2 miles away, its battery dead but memory intact, showing his last recorded position as somewhere that doesn't exist on any map. Rangers who examined the site described feeling uneasy, as if the canyon itself wanted them to leave. One searcher reported his compass spinning wildly when he approached the exact spot where Kappen's body was found, the needle refusing to settle on north. To this day, the official cause of death remains accidental fall, but those involved in the search tell a different story. They speak of the Superstitions as a place where people don't just get lost, they disappear into something that doesn't follow normal rule. Since Kappen's death, at least 4 other hikers have vanished in similar circumstances, their vehicles found at trailheads, their trails ending abruptly, their fates unknown. Story 2. The Phoenix Lights Military Silence. On the evening of March 13, 1997, thousands of Arizona residents witnessed something that should have been impossible. A massive V-shaped object, estimated to be over a mile wide, drifted silently across the night sky from Henderson, Nevada, through Arizona, and into Mexico. The object was seen by people across a 300-mile corridor, including pilots, police officers, and even the governor of Arizona. Witnesses described it as enormous, metallic, and studded with lights that glowed amber against the darkness. Dr. Lynn Kitay, a physician living in Phoenix, captured video footage from her backyard, showing orbs of light hovering in formation before slowly drifting south. Hundreds of others did the same, creating a documentation trail so extensive that dismissing the event became impossible. Yet that's exactly what the military attempted to do. Initial reports flooded local news stations. The National UFO Reporting Center received over 700 calls in the first week. But when the media pressed Luke Air Force Base for answers, they received only silence. It wasn't until June, 3 months after the sighting, that the military offered an explanation. Flares dropped during a training exercise by A-10 Warthog aircraft from Operation Snowbird. The explanation satisfied no one. Witnesses insisted the lights moved in formation, maintaining precise spacing as they drifted across the state. Flares would have descended erratically, affected by wind and gravity. The object people saw was solid, massive, and structured, blocking out stars as it passed overhead. Pilots who saw it from the air described it as unlike any aircraft they'd ever encountered. Fife Symington, who was Arizona's governor at the time, initially mocked the sightings during a press conference, presenting an aide in an alien costume. But years later, in 2007, he admitted he had seen the object himself and believed it was something extraordinary, not of this world. He described watching it from his backyard, seeing it pass silently overhead, enormous and impossible to explain. Since then, the Phoenix Lights have become one of the most documented mass UFO sightings in history. But what makes the story truly unbelievable isn't just what people saw, it's what happened afterward. In the weeks following the event, several witnesses reported receiving visits from men claiming to be military personnel, asking detailed questions about what they'd seen and strongly suggesting they refrain from discussing it publicly. Others found their footage confiscated or corrupted, files deleted from cameras and computers without explanation. One witness, an engineer named Michael Tanner, described having his home computer remotely accessed the day after he uploaded his footage to a forum. The video file was deleted, along with backups he'd made on external drives. When he tried to recover the data, he found the sectors had been overwritten multiple times, a process that requires deliberate effort. To this day, the Phoenix Lights remain unexplained. The military's flare explanation has been thoroughly debunked by independent researchers, and the thousands who witnessed that silent, impossible craft drifting across the Arizona sky know they saw something that challenges our understanding of what's possible. Story 3. The Canyon de Chelly petroglyphs that change. In northeastern Arizona, within the boundaries of the Navajo Nation, lies Canyon de Chelly, a stunning landscape of red rock walls and ancient cliff dwellings. The canyon is sacred to the Navajo people, and for good reason. Its walls are covered in petroglyphs, rock carvings made by ancestral Puebloans centuries ago. But some of these carvings behave in ways that defy logic. In 1996, a photographer named Daniel Yates was documenting petroglyphs near Spider Rock, a sandstone spire sacred to Navajo tradition. He photographed a panel of carvings depicting spirals, human figures, and geometric patterns. When he returned 6 months later to photograph the same panel under different lighting conditions, he noticed something impossible. The carvings had changed. New figures appeared where none had been before. A spiral that previously curved clockwise, now spiraled counterclockwise. An animal figure that faced left now faced right. Yates compared his original photographs with the new images, certain he had documented the correct panel. The rock face was identical. Same cracks, same lichen patterns, same position relative to surrounding landmarks. But the petroglyphs themselves had shifted. Suspecting vandalism, Yates reported the changes to Navajo Park officials. When rangers examined the panel, they found no tool marks, no fresh cuts, no evidence that the rock had been recently carved. The petroglyphs showed the same patina, the same degree of weathering, as if they had always been exactly as they appeared now. Intrigued and unsettled, Yates began documenting other petroglyph panels throughout the canyon. Over the next decade, he returned dozens of times, photographing the same sites repeatedly. In approximately 30% of his subjects, he documented changes. Small shifts at first, a line extending slightly, a figure gaining an extra limb, but in some cases, entire new carvings appeared or existing ones vanished completely. He published his findings in a small archaeology journal in 2008, expecting skepticism. What he received instead were dozens of emails from other researchers, photographers and park staff who had noticed the same phenomenon but feared ridicule if they spoke publicly. One park ranger admitted he had been documenting changes in a specific panel for over 15 years, watching as the images seemed to evolve, telling a story that unfolded across decades. The Navajo elders Yates spoke with were unsurprised. They told him the canyon is alive, that the spirits of their ancestors still dwell within the stone, and that the petroglyphs are not static records of the past but living messages that change according to needs of the present. They speak of the canyon breathing, expanding and contracting with the seasons, and of the rock itself remembering, holding stories that surface when the time is right. Scientists have proposed explanations. Erosion patterns, shifts in rock layers, tricks of light and shadow, creating illusions of change. But none of these theories account for the consistency of witness reports or the photographic evidence Yates compiled. The petroglyphs of Canyon de Chelly remain a mystery, a place where the boundary between past and present seems to dissolve, where stone itself becomes a canvas for something we don't yet understand. Story 4. The Sedona Vortexes and Compass Anomalies. Sedona is world famous for its vortexes, sites where visitors claim to feel heightened spiritual energy. But beyond the New Age tourism, there's something genuinely strange happening in certain locations around Sedona, phenomena that affect even skeptics and scientific equipment. In 2003, a team of geologists from Northern Arizona University set up magnetometers at several vortex sites to measure magnetic field variations. What they found was baffling. At specific locations, including Airport Mesa and Cathedral Rock, magnetic readings fluctuated wildly, swinging from normal to highly anomalous within seconds. Compass needles spun, GPS units lost signal, and in one case, a researcher's digital watch reset itself to midnight and stopped to read. The team documented these anomalies over several months, ruling out solar activity, nearby metal deposits, and equipment malfunction. The readings were consistent and repeatable. Something about these locations was interfering with magnetic fields in ways that shouldn't be possible given the known geology. But the strangeness goes deeper. Hikers and visitors to these vortex sites report experiences that transcend magnetic anomalies. Many describe a feeling of disorientation, not unpleasant but profound, as if their sense of direction and time has been temporarily disrupted. Some claim to see shimmering in the air, heat wave-like distortions even in cool weather. Others report hearing sounds that seem to come from inside their own heads, tones, hums, or whispers without an external source. One particularly well-documented case involves a couple from Colorado who visited Cathedral Rock in 2009. They hiked to the base of the formation just before sunset, planning to watch the light change on the red rocks. As they sat on a flat stone, both noticed the air around them begin to shimmer. The husband later described it as looking through water, everything beyond a certain radius appearing distorted. Then, simultaneously, they both experienced what they described as a vision. Not a hallucination, but a vivid, shared image of the landscape as it might have looked thousands of years ago, before modern development, filled with structures they couldn't quite identify and figures moving in the distance. The vision lasted perhaps 10 seconds, then faded abruptly. When they checked their phones to see if they'd captured anything on camera, both devices were dead despite having full battery minutes earlier. When they returned to their car an hour later, the phones turned on normally, but neither device showed any record of the hike, no photos, no GPS data, as if that hour had been erased. To this day, Sedona's vortexes attract thousands seeking spiritual experiences, but the scientific anomalies remain unexplained. Researchers continue to study the sites, but every answer leads to more questions. Is it the geology, some unique combination of iron-rich rock and underground water, that creates these effects? Or is it something else? something about the landscape itself that touches on forces we don't yet have the tools to measure. Story 5. The Mogollon Rim Creature Sightings. The Mogollon Rim is a nearly 200-mile escarpment that cuts across central Arizona, separating the high plateau country from the lower deserts. It's a place of stunning beauty and deep forest, but it's also been the site of persistent cryptid sightings, reports of a creature that locals simply call the Mogollon Monster. The first widely publicized sighting occurred in 1903 when a newspaper in Williams, Arizona, published an account from a man named I.W. Stevens. He described encountering a massive hair-covered creature that walked upright and smelled of rot. He claimed the creature followed him for several miles, staying just inside the tree line, before finally disappearing into the forest. Since then, hundreds of reports have surfaced. Witnesses describe a bipedal creature standing 7 to 8 feet tall, covered in dark hair, with a powerful build and a stride that suggests immense strength. Many reports include details about the smell, an overwhelming stench like decaying flesh that lingers even after the creature leaves. In 1987, a forest ranger named Tom Stacy encountered something near Strawberry, Arizona, that he still can't explain. He was driving a service road just after dawn when he saw a large figure standing in the middle of the path ahead. At first, he thought it was a bear, but as he slowed the vehicle, the figure stood upright on 2 legs and turned to face him. Stacy described a face that was almost human but not quite, with deep-set eyes and a flat nose. The creature stared at him for what felt like an eternity, then turned and walked into the forest, moving with a fluid gait that no bear could replicate. Stacy filed a report, but it was quietly dismissed as a misidentification. Yet over the years, dozens of other rangers, hikers, and hunters have described nearly identical encounters. In some cases, tracks have been found, large bipedal prints that don't match any known animal. Casts taken of these prints show dermal ridges, suggesting skin rather than fur, and proportions that are distinctly primate-like yet far too large to be human. Skeptics attribute the sightings to bears, elk, or misidentified humans. But those who've had encounters insist they know what they saw, and it wasn't any animal they could name. The Mogollon Monster remains one of Arizona's most enduring cryptid legends, a reminder that even in our well-mapped world, there are still shadows where the unknown might dwell. Story 6. The Meteor Crater Time Anomalies. Meteor Crater, located near Winslow, Arizona, is one of the best-preserved impact sites on Earth. Nearly 50,000 years ago, a meteorite slammed into the desert, creating a crater almost a mile wide and over 500 feet deep. It's a popular tourist destination and a site of ongoing scientific research. But visitors and researchers have reported something strange happening there. Experiences that suggest time itself behaves oddly near the crater's rim. In 2001, a geologist named Dr. Patricia Verne was conducting field research on the crater's south rim when she noticed her watch had stopped. She checked her phone for the time and found it had also frozen, displaying the same time as her watch, 11:47 a.m. She thought little of it, assuming both devices had somehow malfunctioned. But when she returned to her car 2 hours later, both her watch and phone resumed working, and both showed 11:47 a.m., as if no time had passed. Verne mentioned the experience to colleagues, expecting them to laugh it off. Instead, several admitted they'd had similar experiences while working at the crater. One researcher described spending what felt like an entire afternoon taking measurements, only to return to the visitor center and discover that only 20 minutes had elapsed. Another told of losing 3 hours, walking the crater rim and emerging to find the sun much lower than it should have been given how long he thought he'd been out. These reports led to informal investigations. Researchers began wearing multiple timepieces, comparing mechanical watches to digital devices to atomic clock signals. In a significant number of cases, discrepancies emerged. Time seemed to stretch or compress near certain spots on the rim, particularly on the south side where the meteorite's trajectory would have first made contact. Theories abound. Some scientists suggest the high iron content in the meteorite fragments could create localized magnetic anomalies that interfere with electronic devices. Others propose The crater's unique geometry creates acoustic or visual effects that distort perception of time. But none of these explanations fully account for the consistency of reports or the fact that mechanical watches, which aren't vulnerable to magnetic interference, also show anomalies. The Meteor Crater time anomalies remain an unsolved puzzle, a place where visitors occasionally discover that their experience of time doesn't quite match the rest of the world, and where the impact of an ancient cosmic event might still be echoing in ways we don't yet understand. 6 stories from Arizona, 6 mysteries that challenge our assumptions about reality. From vanishing hikers in the Superstitions to unexplained lights over Phoenix. From changing petroglyphs in sacred canyons to magnetic vortexes in Sedona. From cryptid encounters on the Mogollon Rim to time distortions at Meteor Crater, Arizona proves that the most impossible stories are often rooted in places we can visit, phenomena we can witness, and mysteries that refuse simple answers. If you're fascinated by the unexplained corners of the American Southwest, subscribe and let us know which Arizona mystery unsettles you most. Perhaps the desert holds more than heat and stone. Perhaps it holds doorways to questions we're only beginning to ask.